Yeah, the Titans, I'm not a fan of. I've been a Cam Ward hater for a while now.
Yeah. They're probably kicking themselves. They wish they could have been in the Super Bowl, but next year,
The quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott.
so I need to see it before I can believe it.
Editor Tom's not going to like that.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Ain't That Our Ball, the final episode of the 2026 season. We're done with the Super Bowl. We've wrapped things up, so we're going to take a look back on everything that's happened this year. I'm David Scott. Alongside me is NFL expert Ryan Sanudo. Ryan, season's over. How you feeling?
Very good. I mean, it just went by just the blink of an eye. Ready to get started on this one.
All right, well, let's start with a little quick conversation of most valuable player versus least valuable player. We know the most valuable player. It's Matthew Stafford. He won the award this year. We had his back all season long. We knew it was going to be him, but he's officially got it now. Why was he so good this year?
Oh, the stats back it up. I mean, over 45 touchdowns. He didn't really turn the ball over at all throughout the season. I mean, it was, I think, Stafford in May, but you know what? Just the experience that Stafford had, throwing to Puka, throwing to Devontae Adams, he was really good throughout the year. I think he had like one or two bad games, but then he backed it up in the, end of the season. So, and Drake May, he had his little bit of issues maybe in the early part of the season, but Stafford throughout the year, he was more consistent.
Yeah, Stafford, it was weird. It seemed like only his bad games came against bad teams.
Yeah.
I think it was one bad one against the Panthers and one bad one against the Falcons, and then otherwise he was lights out the whole year. He was especially great against good competition like the Seahawks. He always turned it up against them, and they end up going on to win the Super Bowl. But he was a step away. He was, 4 points away from ending up going to the Super Bowl himself, and I think if the Rams end up there, they end up winning as well. So, but regardless, it ends up going to the Seahawks. They're the champions, but Stafford's the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he was good throughout the year. I mean, he had tough competitors. Obviously the 49ers made the playoffs too in that division. Obviously the Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. So he backed it up throughout the year. And then also he was good against the Seahawks in the championship game. 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. So just top to bottom, he was so good throughout the year. It was just the defense at the end of the year, against Seattle that, didn't really play to what they hoped. So, I mean, they're probably kicking themselves. They wish they could have been in the Super Bowl. But next year, I think they have a real good chance to make the Super Bowl next year.
All right, well, if Stafford is the most valuable player, we have a look at who might be the least valuable player. I went through the list of quarterbacks this year, kind of tried to break it down, and I settled on Geno Smith. It seemed like the easiest option. He gets traded over to the Las Vegas Raiders. No one expects them to be all that good. They're really, really bad, and a lot of that was on the shoulders of Geno Smith.
Yeah, the decision-making was just brutal at the worst possible times for Geno, and he can't move around that great, too. That was never really his specialty, throughout his career. He had his good moments, obviously, Seattle, and Vegas, gets him thinking, you know what, like he wins that first game, they beat the Patriots, and they're thinking, okay, let's get maybe 5 wins throughout the year, maybe more, and it just turned out to be terrible throughout the year. The decision-making was brutal. He was overthrowing guys. He never really was in sync with his receivers. And Brock Bowers got hurt too, so that didn't really help him. And obviously the offensive line was terrible too. So it wasn't just Geno, but Geno played a major factor in the Vegas Raiders and their struggles.
Yeah, really the only good thing that Geno Smith did was get them the #1 overall pick so that they can replace him and get Fernando Mendoza. So, get Mendoza, you got Clint Kubiak coming in as head coach. I think there's a bright future for the Raiders if they nail some of their other moves around that. But yeah, Geno Smith is certainly the one who got them there.
Exactly, and they're just going to. I think they're just going to get rid of him throughout in the offseason, cut him or trade him. I don't even know who wants to trade Geno right now.
Yeah, it might be a cut.
Especially with that contract. So I think they're going to get rid of him and obviously draft Mendoza. You got to like their hopes, in the next year, the year after. But in 2026, it might be a little bit of struggle for a rookie in a system that he's not really used to. It's his first year, obviously, in the NFL. The offensive line is still, has its struggles, and the wide receiver core they have to figure out. So there's a lot of question marks. I do like Kubiak, but they got to nail their picks, and they obviously have a lot of cap space too to work with. So I like their chances in 2027, 2028. But the first year might be tough for Vegas.
Yeah, the future's definitely bright for the Raiders. And in thinking about bright futures, we're going to take a look at some of those teams that are in the top 10 in draft picks like the Raiders are and try to break down who might be a worst to first candidate, someone who was just a terrible team who is picking in the top 10 of the draft that could vault themselves back into either first place or into playoff contention. You have an idea of any teams that could be that candidate?
Yeah, I have a couple teams. I'm going to start with the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they're in a division that's one of the worst in the league. The division winner was 8-9 in the Carolina Panthers. So I always look at divisions, who has it easy, who has it tough, and the Saints certainly have it easy. They beat the Bucs at the end of the year last year, so they really turned it on a little bit in the second half of the season. Tyler Shock looked good. They have Chris Olave. They traded away Shaheed, which was, probably a bummer for their fans, but they still have Olave. They still have, a top pick in this upcoming draft, and they obviously have free capital, draft capital and money in free agency. And I do like the Titans too. I mean, they have a lot of money in free agency, and they have a top pick too. Cam Ward had his struggles early on, but then he picked it up in the second half. And you have Brian Dable, who I like as an offensive coordinator, and Robert Saleh, who will be calling the plays on the defensive side. And they're in a division. Okay, I like the Jaguars, but other than that, the Texans are good too. But, it's always up in the air, that division. It's always something that's unpredictable that happens. Like, we did not expect the Jaguars to win the division last year. I think the same could possibly happen for the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans, I'm not a fan of. I've been a Cam Ward hater for a while now. Yeah. But I think the Saints are a real opportunity to be one of those teams that makes a huge jump next year. I think Tyler Shough is one of those main reasons. I was really scratching my head at the second-round pick for him when they took him in 2025, and he's proved me wrong. They had a positive record while he was the starting quarterback. They were really having a lot of momentum. I mean, one game goes differently. They might be the team that gets into the playoffs in the South. So they look pretty good underneath him. I think they have a solid core around him on offense and defense. They make a couple good picks in the draft. They got good money in free agency. I think they are one of the best candidates to make that jump forward. I would also point out the Giants, who I think are in one of the tougher divisions to play in when you got the Eagles and the Cowboys, and the Commanders had all their issues last year, but they went to a championship game the year before. So you're in a pretty tough division there. They just have a young core that could be spectacular. You're looking at Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatteraboo. I mean, the defense has incredible talent all over it. They need just a few pieces here and there, and under Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh. They could make a huge step forward, I think. It's going to be tough. You still got the Eagles there. They're recent Super Bowl champions, but there's a lot to be excited for in New York.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of things to be excited. Obviously, John Harbaugh is the very start, and then it's obviously Jackson Dart. I think, at the same time, I do like them. There's a good chance of them making the playoffs, or at least they have hopes of making the playoffs, but the division might be tough. The Eagles, the Cowboys, they've had their number for quite a while, so I need to see it before I can believe it.
All right, well, I don't think there's really anyone else in there that you could maybe point out the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they're picking 10th, but the Chiefs are at 9. That's an unfair pick.
Yeah.
You can't take them. So I think there's a couple guys in there. We're not going to pick the Jets or the Dolphins.
No.
They stink. So we'll move on to our last thing here. We're before free agency. We're before the draft, so nothing really has changed with these teams. So it's hard to make any predictions, but we're going to do some way too early predictions for the 2026 NFL season, starting with your pick for Super Bowl champion in 2026.
So I thought the Los Angeles Rams had a good shot of winning the Super Bowl this past year, and obviously the Seahawks, won that game. So I think the Los Angeles Rams, look, 2 years ago, they lost to the Eagles in the division round. This past year, they lost to the Seahawks in the championship round. I think they can make the next step forward to getting into the Super Bowl and possibly winning. So I like their chances. Stafford, a lot of those guys are going to be back in the offseason. They have a top pick, too. They have a top 12 pick thanks to the Falcons. They made a trade last year. They can trade back or, use that pick. So I like their chances moving forward, and I really like the way their whole team is structured. They still have Chris Shula at defensive coordinator. That's going to be calling the plays on defense. And look, you get rid of Michael Flores, the offensive coordinator. Not get rid of, he joined Arizona, but, let's be honest, McVay is still calling those plays. So I like their chances. I think I can trust the Rams moving forward. And they could have actually been in the Super Bowl this year. I think they can make it next year.
Yeah, they're certainly going to be deep playoff contenders next year. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. I think the Broncos were a broken ankle away from being in the Super Bowl this year. I'm not sure they would have beaten the Seahawks, but they definitely would have put up a better fight than the Patriots did. It's just a really unfortunate Bo Nix injury that throws off their entire season. I think they're going to run it back next year with a pretty similar team. I think a lot of that defense is coming back. Courtland Sutton, I think they're going to have to work out a contract with him. They need some help outside of him in the receiving core, and they could really use a true running back one in that offense. But, I mean, they've got a decent amount of money to work with. Their draft pick is obviously fairly low, but it's still a first-round pick. You get a couple pieces in there, continue to boost that top defense. I think you're going to be right back in the same position that you were, around 14 wins, and then just rolling through the playoffs. They were close to the number 1 seed. They just lost it to the Patriots. They were the one seed.
No, they were the number 1 seed. Yeah.
They were the 1 seed. So never mind. But they'll probably be back in the 1 seed if they roll out a similar team. Bo Nix taking a step forward. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a Broncos fan, and I think they could be the team out of the AFC and then the one that wins it next year. So we got our Super Bowl winners, but before the Super Bowl is played, the MVP is announced. So we're gonna ask, what is your 2026 MVP pick?
I mean, this is an easy one for me. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. He's already won 2 MVPs. He should have won a third in 2024. Josh Allen had it, but he had better stats against Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson, he was just hurt last year. Once that happened, all hell broke loose for Baltimore, and they were just 1 win away, obviously against the Pittsburgh Steelers in winning that division. It didn't work out, obviously, but if Lamar is healthy, he always has a chance of winning MVP, and I think they can add a wide receiver or two in, at the the NFL draft, possibly, through free agency. So you always like your hopes with Lamar Jackson, at quarterback. They obviously don't have John Harbaugh anymore, but I still trust, their coaching, Jesse Minter. I think they have a lot of good pieces. Derrick Henry's still going to be there, obviously. So I really trust Lamar Jackson getting that third MVP trophy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a guy who's never won one, who's come close to winning one, and that's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. He's been close. He's come in second before. I think if he gets just a complete team around him, he can really take that step forward. He's always around, 400 to 4,500 passing yards, 30 to 40 touchdowns, a pretty limited interception number. Sometimes it gets a little inflated, but he just hasn't had quite a team to get him into the playoffs as of late. If you get George Pickens back, if you beef up that defense a little bit to get him into a position to make a playoff run, I think if he has those numbers of, over 4,000 yards, 30-something touchdowns, low interceptions, those are MVP numbers if you're a playoff contender. That's around what Drake May had this year, and he was the number 2 in the MVP. When you have a better team around you and you're in a better position, the MVP voters seem to take more account of that. So I think if the Cowboys are in a good position next year, Dak Prescott's going to have his name up there, and he's going to end up winning it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, add defense at the NFL draft. They have 2 first-round picks this year, and free agency too. I think it can work out. I think, like you said, the overall team has to get better. I mean, you can't just rely on Dak. The defense has to step up. So I agree. Dak has always been in that conversation. He has a chance this year.
Editor Tom's not going to like that.
Yep.
And then we're going to take a look lastly at our Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. But we'll start with Offensive Player of the Year. Who you got to take that one home?
I'm surprised this guy hasn't won it ever. Jamar Chase. I mean, he's 25 or 26 years old. He was second 2 years ago, and Saquon obviously won that award. And it only took, Saquon to have one of the best seasons as a running back for him to get that award. Jamar Chase, I feel like it's going to be, when, not if, he's going to win this award. He's always good. He's always going to get over 100 receptions. It's a matter of, Higgins was, I think, hurt, in 2024, so that meant a lot more for Chase. So it always comes down to, Higgins if he's going to steal some targets, receptions. But Jamar Chase, he's just an otherworldly talent. So Burrow, Chase, they love connecting with each other. I think Chase has a good chance next year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a bit of a wild card pick here. I'm going to go with the rookie Jeremiah Love. Right now, I'm projecting him to be drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that just seems like the perfect storm for him to go nuclear. He's, in my opinion, the best running back prospect we've seen in maybe 2 decades. He's just got all the talents to be a generational running back prospect. He looks better than Ashton Genty looked last year. I think he is going to come out just firing on all cylinders. And if he goes to a situation like the Chiefs, we could see a 15 to 1,700 yard rusher as a rookie. And if you do that on the Chiefs, who are probably going to be back in the playoffs next year, there's going to be a lot of eyes on you. I think he can be the focal point of that offense. I think he could be an offensive rookie of the year, an offensive player of the year, MVP candidate, whatever. I love this guy as a prospect. We're going to break him down in future episodes, but he's really something special, and I can't wait to watch him further.
Oh, he's so elusive. The attributes are just off the charts. I mean, if he goes to the Chiefs, like Patrick Mahomes will love this guy. I mean, we did like Rashee Rice and all these other guys a year ago, but after this past year, I mean, they need a guy that they can rely on, and obviously Kelsey might retire, so this would be a good guy on the Chiefs offense.
All right, Defensive Player of the Year, last of the awards. Who you got?
Oh, I'm going with Nick Bonito. I mean, every single year I feel like he jumps up a little bit in this type of award. I think he was like 8th or 9th 2 years ago. He was 4th this year. I think he can grab this award next year. He's always going to get at least 12, 14 sacks. He's that guy on the Denver Broncos defense. He's so quick. He's so elusive. The Broncos love having him there. I mean, he's young too, and he's such an underrated player. I just feel like there's other guys, like the Myles Garretts of the world, they always have a good chance, but Nick Bonito, if he just lights it up in the early part of the season, people will take notice, and I think he has a good chance next year. I'm
going to also stray away from the Myles Garretts of the world and go with Aiden Hutchinson, a guy who I think was on track to win it before he had that catastrophic injury last year. Came back, he looked great this year. I think he is going to continue being one of those game record type of players. I mean, he was a great prospect coming out of Michigan, somehow fell to the Lions at the number 2 pick, so I guess he didn't really fall all that much, but he definitely should have been the number 1 overall pick. But he's explosive, he's so strong, he's just got an incredible frame. He's exactly what you want out of an edge rusher. and he shows it week after week. He's always disrupting the quarterback. I think he's going to have 15 plus sacks next year. I think he's going to be just all over the place, and he's exactly what you look for in a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Oh, when he got that injury, I think he was like the favorite to win this award. So, even after the injury, he rehabs and he comes back looking the same type of player. So, I do like that pick, and he's the #1 guy on Detroit, and they need him, and I see him possibly winning the award.
All right, well, the season's a long way away, but we already can't wait for it. So that's going to do it for the final episode of Ain't That Our Ball for the 2025 season. You can still watch X's and O's every Monday, and then keep an eye out for the rest of our off-season coverage. Please like and subscribe, and let us know who you think is going to win the Super Bowl next season.